kumiga fayale baro rasul mulki dadala tekedi baro harsidi mabulu tekeni baro
قلتي يا حي كنا ببعد الرسول ادقك ودو مكتود رسول دنكالي عينك نان ولولي
دنكالي kumiga fayale baro rasul mulki dadala gersole baro harsidi mabulu tekeni baro
قلتي يا حي كنا ببعد الرسول ادقك ودو مكتود رسول دنكالي عينك نان ولولي دنكالي
عن الركتا
نعاد اللي
نولين بطافة وقايدكو بلساق نور سلين
دنكالي يكوني عن الركتا.
My friends, my name is Joseph Magnet. I'm a constitutional law professor at the University of Ottawa, an experienced prosecutor, and I look forward to sharing some ideas with you this morning. I want to acknowledge and thank Sultan of Beirut, honored traditional and customary leaders of the Afar people, so the Afar people gathered here, these are real heroes who work hard to make progress for Afar in the three countries they are located. And I regard them as real heroes who I unreservedly admire. My talk unfolds in three parts. First, the mandate you gave me in 2010 and 2011. Second, what has been done in the 15 years since that time. And third, what we need to do now to make a better future for Afar people.
سنتنا لما في كي طبعا كي سنة لما في كي طبعا كي تياها أفراد دار يمين تسوقي يوم تحني ترى المسؤولية هاي راحت هي لما هايتو وكي كي أكيد فنت جلسني هني قفسني أفر دانكاليا دايلو بنادمينو حب قدسني هنا الحدو إدي كديني تهيا سيدي حياتو كادو أساقو دانكاليا دايلو إدي تاني تان حدو كي تساقيني يعني ودي كي سامتي إدي تتنفع تانيوي يعني دي أبانفرا
Afar traditional and customary leaders requested to meet with me. They took me all around Afar state. I met thousands and I discussed with sultans, elders, heads of waredas, religious leaders, into Afar stories, reports of land theft, massacres, and persecution in Eritrea. We discussed what Afar needed in Eritrea, and you came to some conclusions. You needed Afar autonomy and self-government, ownership of Afar lands and resources, equality of nationalities, protections for the Afar language, customary law and culture, human rights and democracy. Was agreed to by signature here of some thousands of Afar and reaffirmed by many thousands. You also asked me to bring Eritrea's persecution of the Afar. Because of this work, the United Nations appointed a commission of inquiry to investigate Eritrea's crimes. The commission asked me for evidence, which I provided. So you understand, a lot of evidence, but for example, Sultan Shami testified to the United Nations that he saw a mass grave full of murdered Afar victims. He went to complain to Eritrean officials, and the Eritrean officials admitted to him, yes, we did it, but don't come back here. I showed the United Nations where the grave was and asked them to conduct a flyover to verify it. On the basis of all this evidence, I asked the United Nations to conclude that named Eritrean officials were guilty of crimes against humanity. The Commission agreed with us. The United Nations recommended that the Security Council determined that the persecution of the Afar posed a threat to world peace, that the Security Council refer the situation in Eritrea to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court to serve justice on these Eritrean criminals. Let's talk about what you should do now. My first recommendation is this. The United Nations Security Council has all the information it needs to establish that Eritrea is committing crimes today against the Afar. My first recommendation is that you work with your governments to request the United Nations intervene in Eritrea to use active measures, including military force, to protect the Afar in Dankali. Let me help you now consider what the possible futures in Eritrea could be. Eritrea is a totalitarian state. When we study the many totalitarian states, we discover that there is no path forward for a democratic transition in Eritrea. Nothing will happen until the dictator dies or is overthrown by violent means. So we have to ask, what happens when Isaias dies or is overthrown by violent means? The most likely scenario is that the military officers compete among themselves to form a replacement regime. The most probable outcome of this competition is reimposition of totalitarian controls by a successor regime, also totalitarian. what should you do to prepare for this? You have already said what that constitution has to be. Afar autonomy, self-government, control of lands and resources, language, culture, way of life. Ethiopia needs to promise this to you and to build a new democratic Eritrea as an ally with the Afar, an important part in a self-governing territory within a reformed Eritrea. I will be with you all the way to support you in whatever you choose to do. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your attention.